I ask a student to lick a poison, he would consider me a fool. How many students delay or even ruin their progress by wrong practice? I was such a person to a degree. I started playing flute at 15, and thanks to my proficiency in piano playing and above average dexterity, my progress was rather quick. After some 4 months, I performed Clemens Sonata in F. After 10 months, I cracked Kuhlau grand solos. By 17th, only after 2 years of learning, I played Blodeck and Mozart concertos in D. The very serious problem came shortly afterwards. I could not control my fingers anymore, and indeed I did not touch those concertos for years. My piano teacher, Kamil Pavlík, at the Prague Conservatorium was the first person who gave me a good advice about practicing rhythmic variants. Too long, too short, followed by too short, too long, and finally long, too short, and long. This method made my practice profitable, and after 2.5 years at Conservatorium, I became a member of the opera orchestra of the Prague National Theatre. Decades later, I read articles about how the brain works and applied some of those ideas to my practice. It gave me confidence, liberated me from anxieties related to technical controls, and allowed me to perform in recitals, works such as Bach, Berlioz, Prokofiev, Paganini, into the middle of my 70s. These ideas will be the topic of my talk. Everything in the learning process is controlled by the brain, and it is good to understand how the brain works. Brain consists from billions of neurons which have more interconnections, so-called synapses, between them. The communication between neurons occur by alternation of electrical impulses which trigger a chemical response. Repetitions of an information, repeated practice, makes a permanent chemical reaction which is a basic of our memory. So far so good for the advice of repeated practice, such as repeat this bar 100 times. There could be some problems. There are parts of our brain, amygdala, hippocampus, and hypothalamus. They are involved in producing of emotions such as fear, anxiety, but also pleasure. This may happen when we overload the capacity of our brain. Another problem happens when we make mistakes, which means we are imprinting two routes of informations, the correct and the faulty ones. Please understand that our brain is a kind of computer, and it is not good to upload conflicting information. In the learning process, there are two interacting factors involved. First, the grasp. Second, the span of concentration. The grasp means storing new information in our brain, understanding it, and relating it to the existing knowledge. Learning new language may be an apt illustration. A person who does not speak Czech will hardly grasp the word červenec, which means July, and would need to subdivide it into several parts. Person knowing Czech will grasp the word as a single unit. The span of concentration means how long a brain is capable to grasp new information before starting to think about anything else. The example 66 deals with the recall, that is, information already imprinted in our memory. It will be more difficult to learn descending chromatic scale in major sevenths than to learn to play chromatic descending octaves. In terms of technique, that means changing of embouchure and fingering, both series are identical. Before discussing process of learning, it is important to understand what constitutes the technique and its basic unit. It is changing simultaneously embouchure and fingering. None of the fingering itself is difficult, but a sequence of exchanges may be difficult, depending on the number of fingers involved and the direction of their movement. In a proper learning, there must be an equilibrium between quality of embouchure controls and a perfection of finger exchanges, something what the physicists call communicating vessels. Tafanel, in his method complète de flûte, is categorical. L'élève aura toujours présent à l'esprit cette règle que sonorité, pureté de son et justesse rigoureuse doivent passer avant les soucis de droitesse. Another point is worth to mention. There is a difference between running fast or slow, as against playing flute fast or slow. A faster runner makes more steps than the slower one. However, the flautist playing slow must have the same precise exchanges in zero time as a flautist playing a virtuoso piece. Simply, increasing the speed is shortening the time between two perfect exchanges. The flautist learning new piece is in a position of a person learning the word chervenec, unless she is in part familiar with some of the technical patterns, such as part of the scales, etc. At the beginning of learning new material, one needs to subdivide it into smaller sections that her brain is able to grasp without imposing a stress on himself or herself. I wish to add to Tafanel's advice, en travaillant à quelque soit degree the difficulty means of whatever level of difficulty, in every stages of learning, more about it later, one must have a feeling of happily floating in a bathtub filled with pleasantly warm water. In other words, one must categorically incorporate relaxation into all learning. One could assume that learning all connections between the notes of flute, starting with the low C and climbing to the highest note, and then proceed with the low C sharp in the same way, may help, if not, to solve some of the problems. It is not so easy, since the single exchange need to be considered in the context of the music or in its part. I give you an example from my own experience, which may elucidate the problem. When I practiced Sicilian and burlesque by Casella, I had difficulties in the third bar of the excerpt. See example 68. I solved the problems when I understood that the problem was not in the third bar, but in the fourth bar, namely in the sequence of exchanges F to A flat, followed by A flat to E flat. And most astonishingly, I have never made a mistake in the fourth bar. This story demonstrates the hidden danger of what I call cancer points, that is, the exchanges in which one does not make mistakes, but which provide you with a paralyzing tension and stress if they remain unresolved. I will deal with this problem in the talk about single exchanges which follows. Why I dealt with the exchanges F A flat and A flat E flat which crippled my Casella. I took them into a laboratory of a single exchange. When you look at the example 70, you see that the single exchange has 3 steps: preparation, action, and relaxation. All are equally important, and you must not cheat in any of these. For me, it was sufficient to play just about 8 exchanges of each connections, allowing plenty time to do it properly and relaxed. One uses the single exchange when one learns a new connection, which is the case of beginners, or if one needs to lubricate my term, the connections such as the 2 exchanges in burlesque which were a little bit neglected. If the single exchange is level 1, grouping is level 2. There are 2 preconditions for a success. First, all exchanges must be fully coordinated, well lubricated in my parlance. Second, one must take such number of notes into a group that one is able to grasp comfortably. To make comparison with learning new Czech word červenec, one does not need at this stage to spell each letter of červenec as C-E-R-V-E-N-E-C, but divide the word červenec into 3 groups: C-E-R-V-E-N-E-C. The benefit of learning through groups is that one establishes more rules of learning, that is, more chains of neurons involved. In the example number 71, one learns first a sequence of ascending thirds. After each completed thirds, group 1 relaxes. After that, one learns ascending groups of descending seconds. After each second group, one relaxes again. The result: there are 2 routes of learning, the same embouchure and finger action. The student who embarked on learning the scales in thirds and went through groupings exercise and shown in the example 71 can now add some additional groupings as seen in examples 67a up to 67e. If she is disciplined and not pushing her brain into overdrive, there will be no need to repeat these exercises ad nauseam. 8 or 10 times relaxed exchanges will do. It is important to grasp all notes in the case of exercise 67, 2 or 3, before playing the following groups. Another important point: do not make the serious fault by accentuating the first note of the group instead of relaxing after the end of a group. Then you will have 5 routes fortifying your learning. Now it is time to learn playing fast properly and economically. Earlier I had some reservation about the advice: played the sections or bars 100 times. I have similar reservation if the advice is start slowly and increase the speed using the metronome. The reason of my reservation is that it does not integrate relaxation in the learning process enough. My advice: increase the speed within a group at the end of which you relax. The same principles that guided the grouping exercises when the rhythmical value of the notes within the group were the same, use this guide also for the groupings when some notes are faster than the other. Dotted rhythmus, example 75, is such a case. Prepare the succession of two rapid notes prior playing them and relax after the second note of the group. Again, replacing relaxation with accentuation is a very dangerous poison. This is the basis of learning the controlled automatization. This is transfer from consciously controlled centers of the brain to the brain centers of the automatic control. Trills may be sometimes a dangerous territory when they are combining consciously controlled action, that is the beginning and end of the trill, with the controlled automatization, that is the trill itself. The trill from the minuet Bach C major sonata bar 1 is such a case. If it is to be performed in the proper speed of a Baroque minuet, that is crochet 160 metronome, it is quite a task to fit in such a tempo, the beginning followed by the trill and concluding termination. Similar problems are at the beginning of Mozart D major flute concerto. My advice: practice first the beginning and end of the trill without the trill itself, and progressively increase the speed until you reach the tempo. Then add the trill itself. For the trill, I practice the individual 4 fingers and the right hand 5 fingers of the left hand, starting with group of 2 notes, followed by group of 3, 4, 5 and 6 notes, relaxing after each group. Needless to say that the tempo cannot be too fast, since it would prevent the relaxation. And secondly, the speed in group of 3 notes are only marginally faster than the speed of note in group of 2 notes. Bar 62 from the Scherzo of the Prokofiev Flute Sonata is a case of learning a controlled automatization. The speed of the passage prevents a consciously controlled the 12-finger exchanges in such a limited time. I will suggest the following steps. First, lubricate the exchanges, example 73, to prevent similar troubles and I have in Casella burlesque. Second step, example 74. Group of notes of the same rhythmical value with a postponement. Step 3. Increase the speed of the notes within one group. Example 75 illustrates group of 2 notes, but you are encouraged to employ this method in group of 3 and 4 notes. Isolation of the note in the passage may be the final step. When you achieve some confidence in groups, including controlled automatization, you may try example 78. You accentuate the first note of the group and let just the finger do the rest of the work without pushing the speed. Go backwards from the end to the beginning of the passage. My last but strong advice: do not play the passages in question in the final speed after working in the steps before. Finish your work of the day with the laboratory of the steps and check the benefit the day after. Similarly, when you have some important event, do not touch the difficult spots prior to the performance, recording, audition, or whatever. This kind of work needs a very great deal of concentration and discipline, and needless to say that when properly done, it is very absorbing and demanding of your brain. As such, it takes only part of your working daily practice. Tone exercises, flageolets among others, are very beneficial, as are articulations and isolated tonguings. Scales and arpeggi, also in intervals from thirds to octave, are the daily bread. Interestingly enough, when I extended the technical work, Moy's exercices journalières, up to the very high D, my technical proficiency increased, and I needed much less time to brush up the pieces for my recitals. Professional athletes incorporate some tough routines in their daily training. My ultimate self-torture were playing study number 9A from Andersen's Opus 15, single tonguing softly, taking just one breath. Then playing study number 9B, double tonguing, allowing myself 2 breaths. Another routine was playing middle section of Paganini Caprice number 5, not fast, but take only 3 breaths. When it was difficult to manage these hard routines, I happily stopped performing at 75.